The way that I think that DEC has misinterpreted the 2011 water permitting law and made it into a much greater benefit for large industrial users than it was intended to be is that they are imposing the condition in the law that says that users get their, existing users get their maximum reported capacity, but they're not imposing any terms and conditions that the law also requires. They have to have, the law says there should be appropriate terms and conditions. And we just got this appellate division where the court says, yes, you know, the law says terms and conditions for existing users. And so what DEC is trying to do, has done, because most of these permits have been issued. We got the first permit annulled, but there are hundreds of other permits have been issued, is they give the large industrial users a benefit that's even greater than an exemption, because they give them a permit, which is a privilege to take water, and may give them priority water rights over other users that don't have permits. But they didn't have any, the law says you can have this privilege, but you have to be subject to appropriate terms and conditions, and DEC is saying they're not going to impose those for existing water users. And they're not charging any fees. I mean, that's, you know, to cap it all, and you know, 1.5 billion gallons a day, TransCanada, well, here you go.
If we look at what we've measured even over the last 10 years in the geophysical monitoring and some of the sampling of outpost wells, and I'm including, you know, the North Shore of Nassau County specifically, and some of the South Shore as well. South Shore is kind of a newer network. The North Shore is an older network that was installed 20 years ago. They're still paying dividends today as information, and we're seeing active intrusion in the Lloyd Aquifer, in Great Neck and Manhasset Neck, and there you can see over the last 20 years, but even in the last 10 years, there have been measurable changes as the salt water gets thicker and the concentrations get higher in the Lloyd using the geophysical monitoring.
WaterWatch is a fantastic website because you can go and it will give you the historical information, but also the graphics that'll help you understand water quality, water levels. So one of my favorite graphs, the default one, is it looks at the 1930s drought and compares the water to today. So the 1930s drought, the whole country is orange and red and dry, compared to the drought we had just this past 3 years ago, where you just see this little corner that's orange and red and dry. So WaterWatch is great for putting water levels and water conditions into context, into historical context. Groundwater Watch is really interesting, especially because a lot of the country drinks the groundwater and uses their groundwater. And you can go to that website and see, you know, sites that have data continuously updated, or sites that have 50 years of record. And if you look at 50 years of record, you really understand better how groundwater conditions have changed over time. And then the other really important one is Water Quality Watch. So Water Quality Watch is showing sites in real time, comparing them across the country or across the state, and saying if conditions, you know, how hot is the water, how cold is the water, how low is the oxygen, how high is the turbidity. You know, you can really see what the water quality is doing in your area.
The emerging contaminants that I talked about today, 1,4-dioxane and PFAS, are currently in the environment. They're impacting us, and they're going to be around for a long time. PFAS in particular is extremely mobile and recalcitrant. It stays in our system, and it's very difficult to remove from our bodies and from the groundwater and from the soil. And it's a liver toxin, and it affects our kidneys, so it's scary. Like, we really want to be aware of these chemicals and find ways to remove them from the consumer products. We're seeing these chemicals in the water and in the soil, and it's going to be there for a long time.